Alfredo Mendoza. I'm a regional director with Starbucks Coffee Company. This is the second time that I've been here, and this is especially special for me as I am an alumni from here. So I've earned my MBA from here at Cal State Dominguez Hills.
Howdy. Hey, good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. All right, I'm from Texas, if you can't hear that, right? Woohoo! All righty. So my name is Debbie Young. I am the area and market manager for Bank of America, but more importantly, my personal brand is I'm fired up and not out. So I'm really excited to be here. This is my second year on the panel. Just really excited to see more and more students. I love the energy, and of course, it's a beautiful campus, so I'm so happy to be here today.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing this afternoon? Woo! All right. And I have worked for many brand organizations in the capacity of a diversity and inclusion manager. So it's wonderful to see all of these diverse faces, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Sharing is caring. Thanks. How's everyone doing? All right, how's everyone doing? All right. My name is Yaret Salgado. I am actually an HR generalist strategic partner for a very small company. It's called Nestle. Does anyone know it? Yeah? Okay. I'm here with a great colleague of mine, Doris, and later on we will be having a great booth set up right outside. We'll be looking for some great talent. Previous to my role, I was a college recruiter supporting sales, so I'm really excited to share some great nuggets of information with you all.
Can everyone hear me? Yes. I talk pretty loud, I forget. Hi, my name is Sheila Wiley, a graduate of Cal State Dominguez Hills. That's what I'm talking about. My role is I work for the YWCA of Greater Los Angeles, not YM, but YWCA. And I am the recruiter and placement coordinator for a program, Digital Learning Academy. I look forward to hearing your questions.
All right, so I just want to jump in and dive into the meat and potatoes of why you guys are probably here. One of the first questions that I have for the panel is, for a job, when filling out your resumes, how do you balance humility and ego and make sure that your resumes give the best version of yourself but are true to your skills? And how do you balance
Look at the job description and then make sure that your resume mirrors what the company is looking for, but especially leadership skills and boasting what you've accomplished is definitely something we look for.
What's also important is really to hone in on your capability. So if you haven't had any accomplishments, and I do suggest that you utilize accomplishments in your school programs, whether in your leadership organizations, you highlight those things. But you really want to speak to capability. What are you capable of doing? For example, if some of you have worked in a customer service arena, you want to highlight that. If you've worked in a project management position, you want to highlight those things. What I say is be specific, do not embellish, or do not over-embellish, because at the end of the day, no matter what's on that paper, if you do get through the process to an interview, to a recruiter, you have to be able to speak clearly and succinctly about what it is that you have done that mirrors what's on the paper. And you really don't want to put something on the paper that you cannot speak to.
I think that's really relevant. One of the things that's very important, I've got about 30 years in my industry, but being authentic. Your resume has to reflect you 100%. Yes, it's great to pay people to write your resume, but if you cannot speak to the contents of your resume, then your resume is no good and neither is you. So it's really important. If it says you're very articulate and you've done all these things, and I interview you, and we cannot speak a sentence that is grammatically correct, I know I hit a couple of nails on the head just, and let me just say that one more time, okay? Your resume has to reflect the person that you are. Again, if someone writes your resume for you, they must know you, the person. That's the most important thing I can say, because when we go through those resumes, we have a file that says this doesn't match anything. Then we have one that says potential. Then you've got a high potential. There shouldn't be anybody in this room based on being aligned with Circle of Change who should not be high potential. And your resume should reflect that.
You know, I think that's a great point. And one of the things that I deal with is we interview folks from the outside, and then we also interview our internal folks. And that provides me with quite a bit of insight. And one of the things that I think has become very clear to me is that oftentimes we will have someone who is an internal interviewing, and they come to the interview, and they don't do well. And the first thing their district manager will come and tell me is that they're just not a good interviewer. You have to trust me, this is the right person. And so it makes me think that there's lots of people out there applying for a job and they sometimes don't get it, and it's not that they're not qualified. I think the resume is an entry point. I think it opens the door for consideration. But one of the things that's so important when you do get into an interview setting is that you don't make the classic mistake of thinking you're going there to answer questions. That is the last thing you ever want to do when you go into an interview, is thinking you're going there to answer questions. You're there to tell your story. You're there to demonstrate your competencies and your skills. And if you don't go in with an agenda or a plan, I can almost always guarantee you're going to struggle in that interview. So I think that the resume leads into the interview, but there's a lot of preparation that goes into that. I can always tell when someone walks in cold. I've interviewed people who had held positions of vice president, and they don't interview well because they didn't prepare.
Awesome, which brings me to my next point. A lot of the people in this room are probably still in college, I would assume, and when you graduate, you will have little to no experience in your field. So how do you convince your potential employer that while you may be lacking in experience, that you are a good candidate for this position?
This is really important to me because I'm a lifetime volunteer. Everything I have ever done when it comes to volunteering is on my resume, it's on my LinkedIn profile. So if you don't have the actual paid experience, think about all the hours that you have volunteered. That has to be on your resume because you've dedicated and given a lot of your time to serving others, whether it's in your church, your school, your alumni association, in your neighborhood, whatever it might be, that entity. But it's so important to use every skill you have acquired, paid or not, and have that documented on your resume.
It's on now. I wanted to add on to what you were saying in terms of the volunteer. Now, when you put it on your resume, you don't put volunteer, the name of the company, and then the time that you were there. Actually put it as if you're doing your professional, your professional experience. The title, if it's most internships or volunteer opportunities have a title, and then write down the what you did, your day-to-day operations, because that not only shows you're a volunteer, but it shows what what you've done while you were there. So just make sure that when you do the volunteer, add that information in terms of what you did during that time.
I would also add that if your life doesn't permit you to volunteer, because for some students you're working 1 or 2 jobs, you're going to school full time, and you may not be able to volunteer. If you're not volunteering, but you're doing things in the classroom where a professor has called you out to say, you've got great leadership skills, you're a great collaborator, you're a great mentor, you want to use those things, weave it into your resume, and also, to her point, have a conversation with people to practice interviewing. Because to his point, if you get there and you've never had that conversation where people are, you're in front of a stranger. First of all, you're frozen. As much as you've prepared, it happens to the best person. You're prepared, you get there, and suddenly you draw a blank. But if you have practiced, whether it's with someone sitting next to you in the classroom or a friend, or even in the mirror, okay, you ask yourself those questions. You ask questions that are not part of the job descriptions, things that you think will be really out there, so you're prepared for any eventuality that comes your way. Preparation is key to success.
The next question I have is, what are some, if you can give each person, give maybe two of the do's and don'ts of interviews?
Okay. You said 2 or 3 do's and don'ts. I'll probably say 2 do's. Definitely do your research. I think that's the most important thing. We talked about being prepared. Do your research about the position, and be prepared to ask questions. Don't just ask a simple question of, oh, can you tell me why you like what you do? Oh, can you tell me 2 things about what you don't like? No, be a little bit more elaborate. Be a little bit more elaborate about the role. Bring your ideas of what you could potentially be doing. And then I would probably say, in terms of the don'ts. The don'ts.
What about previous jobs? There's that inclination to say something negative that would.
Yeah, you never want to say anything negative at all. This is not a therapy session with your interviewer. If you're having a bad day, if you had a worse experience, you don't want to showcase that, because we're in such a small world that someone can know someone that knows someone. And you just don't ever want to burn any bridges. If you had some challenges, there are going to be questions that are going to challenge you, and you need to be prepared to answer those in a very political way, of saying, hey, there were some opportunities. That's also a great word to use. There were some opportunities for me to be able to maybe enhance in this area, but you never want to degrade or say anything negative about anyone or any company.
Just to add to that, I think, think about a couple of do's and a couple of don'ts. The biggest thing I've seen in my professional career receiving resumes or talking to potential candidates out there, make sure you have a professional email address.
Oh my gosh.
I can't say that enough. Some of the things I've seen come through, it's like, yeah, you may have had this in college, but it's so not business appropriate, this email address. Because many of our companies, no matter what the size is, we have filters. So if your email address is inappropriate, I'll just say that one more time. If your email address is inappropriate, chances are you might not be able to get to the person who you want to receive your resume. It may be great and fun. I had one, if I can remember the whole email, but it was something like spicyfuncinnamon@hotmail.com.
Oh, yeah.
And this was at really a job fair that the young person, I won't even identify male or female, but, I had to actually take my badge off and step aside, and I said, you do realize this is an inappropriate, email address. And this person said, well, I've had that, since college. And I'm saying, this is great for your personal friends, but now you're talking about connecting your personal brand, right? My brand is just as valuable. I would never put my personal email address on anything that's going to be looking for a professional opportunity. I think once I had that conversation with the badge off to the person, to this very day, and that was 16 years ago, I've still mentored this person. We have remained in great connection because I stopped and I took the time for one of those don't do. This person now is almost my peer. So you never know, right? And I heard a couple of my peers say here, you never know who knows somebody. So I would say definitely email address must be professional. Don't put your pictures on your resumes. Please don't do that. Yeah, don't do that. Yes, it's great if you're in graphic arts, if the employer asks for that. But again, think about, there's going to be a stack of resumes online, in person. How does yours stand out? Grammatically correct. I've seen where the person's first name was misspelled. So phonetically, I pronounced the name that I saw it. They corrected me in the interview. So, well, you gave it to me wrong. You left the end off of Donald, so I pronounced it Dooled. So again, think about your resume. Whatever you have as your resume, have someone who really doesn't know you read it first. Ask them to give you some good pointers. So those are the things I would probably say. Don't use a personal email on a professional resume. Don't put your pictures on anything. You don't need to use very elaborate colored paper. Yes, it gets our attention, but often from the wrong way, unless you're in the art area. But just remain authentic and genuine when you do your resume or you present yourself in front of a prospective employer.
I'll add just a couple of, just kind of add on to yours. In terms of your resume, I'm not sure where that came from, but every font, your name has to be like font 64, and then everything else is like 9. I wear glasses. I really can't see it. So just kind of be mindful of the person that's reading it, because if you just went straight, 10 is okay for me. So, if you do 10, and then I usually take between 6 and 10 seconds to look at a resume. So when you become too wordy, I've probably got bored. So just know that first half of that is really what we look at, and then the second half is your experience. We're going to bring you in to talk about that. So when you use things like, I'm a team player, I work well with others, well, I'll figure that out. Use the words that as we say, the buzzwords, use words that really stand out. And then when you go in your interview, dress professionally. I know we come from different states and we have different styles, but again, what is it? Your first impression is your last. So you want to bring your personality, by all means. Do you. But at the same time, know that you are applying for a job that a whole lot of other people are applying for. So if you come in, saying, this is me, this is how I'm going to dress, ladies, the big hoop earrings and, the gaudy and, jewelry, not now. My guys, a nice suit. If you don't have a suit, a good shirt, a nice tie, a bow tie, it's fine. But just think, and cologne, not so much. I will fill up a room with cologne, and it may be something that I don't even like to smell. So I got like 5 seconds, and I'm probably going to move you out. So just be mindful of the person that's interviewing you, and then as you mentioned, knowing the job, not just the company, but knowing what you're applying for. Because I remember I applied for a lot of jobs, and then they tell me, well, what is it that attracted you about the job? You're going, oh my goodness, what was the job I applied for? So what I did was I would bring my resume with me, and then I would bring the job description, and I kind of highlighted some things, and just kind of go over it, and then when I'm in the room waiting to be interviewed, I would go in LinkedIn and just see maybe there was some accomplishments that have Starbucks. Oh, you guys are always doing something great. So I would log in and go, when I introduce myself, I'd be like, oh, congratulations, you guys put smiley faces on your cups, or whatever it is. But just be you, but then at the same time, be mindful of who you are and what other people perceive you as.
Awesome. Segueing from that, the question that oftentimes comes up in an interview that is sometimes difficult to answer is, why do you want to work here? And sometimes a truthful answer is, I just want a job. How do people diplomatically answer that question, and what are some of the acceptable answers that you guys would like to hear?
I'll give that one a stab. I don't think you can diplomatically answer that question, at least not for me. I think it has to be truthful. And we deal with, this is a great problem to have, but we have people that want to come work for Starbucks really bad. And we often ask the question, why do you want to come work here? And they'll say, well, because it's a great brand, because it's a great company, because you take such good care of your employees. Those are reasons to go work, but you have to understand that an interview is actually two-way. And one of the things that we look for is we look for someone that's coming here to try to make the brand better than the day that they arrived. And we expect that even in a company like Starbucks. What do you bring? So it's a two-way communication. And I think when someone does say, I need the job, that's not going to work. And if you just want to tout about how great the company is, I think you're at the mercy of that particular employee being pretty egotistical. Most employers are going to know, what do you bring?
That's a really good point. And, one of the things I think is important, I do ask that very question. Why do you want to work here? If they tell me I want a job, they're not going to get a job working for me ever. I only hire for careers. So that's what I'm looking for. And a career you invest in. A job you show up. Right? So, that's a very relevant question, but an honest answer, if they do say, I just need a job, I just want to work near the coffee, that's probably not a person who's going to stay very long. Or if they stay, they're just showing up for the job. They'll be there, but chances are they won't expand themselves to do anything else other than the job.
I just real quickly, we're getting close to an election year. It's actually one of the toughest questions to answer. I actually think most people don't think about that one enough prior to going to an interview. But if you probably go 2 years out from a presidential election, you'll actually watch professional politicians stumble over the question as to why do you want to be president. Just Google it. It's a very tough question to answer. So I'd urge you to spend some time thinking about it.
I was going to say that something similar, so there's no need to add to that. But I think what's important, however, is not everything that you think about or feel is worth sharing. So remember that. Be appropriate. The conversation started about your email addresses. Well, it's the same thing about applying for a job. Critically think about why does this job appeal to you and what capabilities you have that can contribute to that job as well as to move the organization forward. So not because it has a great title or whatever and you're excited, oh, that's the job for me. To their point, think critically about why that job is so important to you, even though you need a job. That's nobody's business.
And just to kind of close or add a little to that, we can tell when you're not genuine about wanting the role as well. So just kind of know that we can read the body language, we can read the research that you've done, and you've hit it right on the nail there. I mean, if you want a job, you can go somewhere else that you just need to show up and get a paycheck. But if you really want a career, you need to be ready to bring some value to the company, which is really what a lot of companies are looking for.
Which brings me to my next question. What does it mean to be professional to you?
What does it mean to be professional? I'll let you guys.
I'll start off. I thought about this, so we got a preview to this question, and it's a good one. Professional person is someone that can be counted on to deliver results in a way that isn't disruptive. That's the definition I came up with, at least. That's a professional. So you go in, you get your job done, and you can be counted on. I hope that maybe later on we can have a conversation about what it means to be a leader, which is different. Mm-hmm. You can be a professional and not be a leader. And I say this as the person that I look up to the most. My father is the definition of a professional. He did 35 years as an engineer. He didn't choose to be a leader. He was an individual contributor. That's what he enjoyed. But I do think there's a distinction between the two. So to be a professional is to be counted on, to leave the drama at the door. The leadership stuff is different. And I think, especially if you guys get an opportunity to ask some questions, I think this panelist will really help you with that.
I would add to that, being a professional is to be honest. So whatever you do, whether you're applying for that job or whether you're in the position, be honest. If you screw up, own it, be accountable. People respect you for that. Yes, they may be upset because of the impact of that screw up, but they will respect you for being honest. So own it. Integrity. Do what you say you will do, no matter what. And if you can't, let someone know ahead of time. Don't let the time pass and then you come in because we know that's an excuse. Life happens and sometimes things get interrupted. So get in front of it. Say, hey, I said I'd be there at 2 o'clock. I can't. Is it possible for us to move it to 2:30 or even up front? If you know your schedule, I find when I was in corporate America, we had this way of scheduling meetings, and one meeting would end and you have to run to another, and we would say, well, wait a minute, what about travel time? Let's do that. So being a professional is being able to speak up and say, having had this experience, here's what I've learned, I'd like to make this suggestion. So those are just some pointers.
And I struggled a little bit with that question because I'm sure if we can all just get a few flip charts here, we can come up with tons and tons of, words on what professionalism means. And to me personally, it means being also being moral and ethical, and having ethical values inside and outside in whatever you do. And adding to that as well, the other thing is appearance. I kind of go back to that as well, because you cannot go into, you could be professional, but people, as we all know, we are very perceptive. We have a very quick reaction. We stereotype very quickly. And although you may be a professional inside, and if you're not carrying yourself as a professional, it's very hard for a leader, a top leader in the organization, to really help gain that respect from you. And I've seen it. So I also say, make sure you're always buttoned up all the time from an appearance standpoint. Of course, take the nuggets of information that my colleagues have shared, and also make sure you also live that at your current role.
Part of, I think I'm going to take a little bit of what everybody just said and roll it into what I truly believe a professional is. It's everything they said, plus realizing being a professional, your brand is your calling card. Doesn't matter what company you work for, whether it's Starbucks or Nestle, my brand right here is me, Debbie Young. That's it. I just happen to be attached to other brands. So being a professional, the minute I step outside of the door to where I live at, I am a professional. Inside of my apartment, my car, where people can't see me, I become just plain old Deb. This girl from East Texas who graduated from Howard University. So again, it's very important when you think about professionalism. There's no one out here who will not say, I know Debbie Young and she loves to have fun, but she's professional. Yeah. She will never be photographed in any type of a way that would make her personal brand demean anyone else, demoralize herself, or make her less valuable. So you have to think about that. Being a professional starts with you, not the company you work for. You take your very valuable brand of professionalism with you no matter where you go in your career. So I think that's the best wisdom and advice, plus what every one of my colleagues said, that I can instill within every one of you leaders today, is to make sure you never forget your brand. It's on Facebook. It's on Twitter. It's on, what's the new one? Snapchat? Snap? See, I don't even know. As my grandmother said, are you on Facebook? I said, yes, ma'am, I'm on Facebook. Any of those things in social media, you have to remember, there's nothing private. So that's your personal and your professional life combined. Someone can Google you and find something you did in Cancun when you were on spring break 4 years ago. If you were in a compromising position, someone's going to see that. And many of us as major employers, we go channel surfing out there. We look to see, and it's great that you're in social media, but remember, as a professional, make sure if you're captured at your best.
I'll just add one, and I definitely agree with you in terms of, your personal brand. I mean, I enjoy life, and I take it to its fullest. But at the end of the day, whatever I say I'm going to do, I'm going to do it. And so when you say that you commit to something, commit to it. Don't, do that just because you want to get ahead, or you see that this, your boss is telling you something and you volunteer and you're not sure if you want to do it, or you don't give it 100%. Give it your all, because we all know that, we are overworked and we do our thing and we have to do it. But if I have to stay at the end of the day to return calls after hours, that's just what I do. Because if I said I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So make sure when you do something, do it. And make sure that you give it your 100%.
I love that. I really do. And I do think there's a place for how you show up and how you look. But I think being reliable and having people be able to trust you. And I apologize, I can't remember what book or article I got this from, but they were talking about boxing. And I'm not a huge boxing fan necessarily, but they were talking, it's one of the most honest sports. And I didn't quite get what that meant until I started reading the article. And they said, well, in boxing, people will train 10 hours a day. And in the course of 10 hours, you can cheat. You can go a little bit easier. But the moment you get in the ring, the fighter that cheated gets exposed. And I think that's a lot of when we show up to work, you have to show up, you have to be consistent. We all have good days, we all have bad days, but you really try to minimize the bad days and you really try to have great days.
I just wanted to add, in terms of social media, it's part of our lives, it's interwoven, but it's critical to the points made earlier to really think about what you're posting. And remember that people can attach, you may decide not to include it, but people can tag those things and add it to their sites. So you have to be very mindful of where you are, what you're doing, what you're about. Yes, you've got a personal life and you've got a professional life, but they're all interwoven. And remember, it lives on forever. So you may try to deface yourself, you may try to take things down, but someone can find you. So think about it.
I'm going to throw this out there. This is always tough because it's like impossible to tell you not to be on social media. Okay, so I'll be the first one to tell you. I have 2 young kids. I'm terrified for the day when they end up on social media. I would love to tell them don't do it. There's just way more risk. Manage the risk as best you can. I think one of the questions we were potentially going to get asked is how do you leverage social media? Stay away from it, but you can't, so minimize the risk that you put on yourself. And then the other part is, yes, the pictures, like, you know, I've gotten tagged holding a beer. That's not what we're talking about. What I would talk about is when you, have to excuse me here a little bit, but when you vomit on social media, okay? When you just decide to unload everything that you're thinking and saying, that's actually way more damaging than any picture I've ever seen. And we see it when people think that they're talking to just someone else or just their circle of friends about their job or about what's going on in school. So you know, we're all on social media up here. I'm on all of them too. I'm posting stuff. But I would ask you, just think about managing that. There's very little upside to it.
Right, because once you put it up, you can't take it down. So, you know, full disclosure, right, all of us are on social media, right? Yeah, there's not, I mean, I'm still learning about Facebook. But that's so important, you know, that people will tag you and that will live forever after you've deleted it and you think you've wiped everything away. We have found things that are just like so inappropriate. So again, think about using a Polaroid. Who knows about a Polaroid camera? Right? Okay. Yeah. Ask your parents if you don't. But if you've got to do something crazy, right? At some point in time, I went to college, you know, several times. There were crazy things that I did. You know, I did spring break. It's okay. It was before social media. I'm a little Jurassic, but that's okay. But just again, think about how you can have fun, live your life, be authentic. Now, if you go so far under the radar, depending on the type of a job you have, we're going to think you're antisocial. If we can't find anything at all, I will tell you, I've gone through this with 2 very high-level managers that I wanted to hire. And they were so far under the radar, we couldn't find anything. They were boring, but they were going to be on the people side. How can they grow and develop people if they knew nothing about social media? They don't know what our customers are thinking. They don't know how to go and do any screen scraping. They didn't know how to do anything. Well, I don't do social media. Well, how are you supposed to manage social media if you're not even out there? So very important.
That is so awesome. We have a little bit of time, and I know you guys have your own questions that weren't asked before, so I want to open up the audience, open up to questions in the audience. Sure. Let me run over here. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Millie Ann, and I was wondering, so if we already have pictures out like that and we try to take it down, and you said that no matter how deep you go into it, you're still going to find it. Does that mean no matter how professional you are, like face-to-face in the interview, does that mean you're not going to hire them at all,
No, that it doesn't mean that. And there's lots of organizations. I won't Google someone. I don't. The kind of organization that we are, we understand that people have lives outside of their work. And, time certainly adds distance to that. So if it's something that happened 10 years ago, I would tell you not to worry about it, to go in, put your best foot forward. Don't let that be the thing. Sometimes it's the things that we're most afraid of that actually derail us. when in actuality, many employers are not going to dig that deep. Some will, and that's fair game. But I would say don't let that potentially derail you in the interview.
It all depends on the job that you're applying for. I think the thing to remember is being in this room and engaging in this conversation, you now have a word to the wise. So going forward, think about what you're doing. And I think what's most important to share with you is that social media is a tool. It's not your way of life. So think about how you use that tool and to what end you use that tool and how it can benefit you today and into the future.
And in terms of social media, the only thing I would say from a recruiting standpoint is LinkedIn really for me is my source from a social media standpoint. So if you are buttoned up on LinkedIn, I think that's going to be probably the best way to market yourself. So that's what I would just say is that would be for me as far as I would go. I don't think I'd Google so much.
No, I have to agree.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, you also have to think about, I think you had mentioned before, what type of a job. If you're going to do anything and you're going to be handling sensitive data, customer information, financial records, they might do a more deeper background check. So you're going to go to Homeland Security, any of the federal government agencies, FBI. I mean, I wanted to be an FBI agent my whole life. You know, after graduating from Howard University, FBI was like right down the street. And they came back and told me that someone I didn't even know in my family had been arrested like 20 years ago. And I'm like, so who are they? It was in my family history. I had no idea. I had to actually ask, my grandmother, so who's this? Oh, that was my brother's son. Well, I don't know this person, but they found it. So again, it depends on what type of an industry you're going to be going into, because some will dig very, very deep, and others, as they just said here, they might just go at the surface. So again, you want to make sure that whatever is out there, you can also address it too. You know what, hey, been out of college 10 years, I did crazy stuff. It's okay. You said it, you got it out of the way. Think about our current president. He wrote 2 books, right? And in those books, he talked about, I smoked weed, right? I did some crazy things. Now, can anybody else come back and say anything about those things to him? No, it's been disclosed. So some things you might just want to disclose and get out of the way, and you can move on with it, and you'll be just fine.
Okay, we have another question. The other thing, I just wanted to add something to that. I know I'm not on the panel, but we all are multifaceted. We make mistakes, and we're not defined by our past. And in everyone's life, if you can look into the lens of their lives, you can find out that there are things that they're not proud of. There are things that they regret, and to not be defined by that, I think is one of the important things. And I'm a true believer in what's meant to be will be. And so if you apply for a job, you don't get it because someone held that one thing in your past against you, then that wasn't a part of your legacy. That wasn't a part of your future. So that was just my 5 cents. Hi, what's your name and what's your question?
Okay, my name is Sandra Lopez, and I go to California State University of Long Beach. Debbie, right? You surprised me when you say that when you cannot find something about a person, they're antisocial. I actually, last year, I just closed Facebook, Instagram. They are so addicted. If you actually try to close it and don't go back, you realize that you're addicted to it. And I said, I don't need this. I need to focus on my future and what I want to do. I don't need it. My friends are my friends, my surrounding. I don't need anything else. So I closed everything, but now that I'm in school and I'm part of the government at school, they make me get Facebook back. So now I have it back. But I was just surprised that you said that. I mean, do you guys think the same, that you see us as antisocial if we don't have?
Right. You want people to be social that you hire. So if you've got a person where they have no life other than going to work 9 to 5, they're probably not going to be social at work either. So you want a person, most companies now, they give you cubes. You're lucky if you get an office, right? So you're sitting next to someone in a cube for 8 to 10 hours a day. If you're antisocial, it's going to show up pretty quick. So again, explore social media. It's great to be on it. I'm in no way saying don't do it. I got Facebook, okay? It's okay to be on there. We're just saying, if you use the examples we've given today, use those going forward. But if you have no social media, that includes LinkedIn. That is still social media, right? So if you're nowhere to be found, that does tell another story.
I think we hit a, sorry, I think we hit a little bit of a string here with folks on social media. You know, at the end of the day, my mother would always say, everything with moderation, okay? Everything with moderation. We all are in this crazy world with social media. We get it. Use it with moderation. Be wise about it. You know, at the end of the day, you know who you are. Social media does not define you. Just be careful with what you do, I think, you know, because to what Debbie mentioned, you are your own brand. Okay, so whatever you're going to brand, that's you. For example, when before I was with Nestle, I would get tagged with my friends. We're doing all this fun stuff. And I'm just like, wow, do I really want to be portrayed like this? I don't. I don't want people to look at me this way. So then I stopped posting things that were not probably conducive, right? So then I started then changing it around, and I said, you know, may this be a vessel for others where I can post positive things, where I can say, hey, here I'm at Circle of Change, you know, super excited to meet these great students, or, oh, I just went to this campus to do this. So I now use it to motivate others, you know, whether it's working out, whether it's going to church, or whatever the case may be, right? So just use everything in moderation and just kind of see it as, what can I use this as a positive versus a negative?
Yeah, and just for everything that we say up here, I mean, it's a perspective. You get to take these perspectives. If any young person could articulate that thought the way you just did, I would hire them. So, you know, I give you a lot of credit, and I think you got to find your own way. So we're sharing with you what our perspectives are. They're shaped by our experiences. Your experiences are going to be different. So it's word to the wise, I think was said earlier.
And I would close by just thinking about being strategic. So it's a tool to be used strategically. Whatever tool you're using, it's essential that you be on LinkedIn from a professional standpoint. But as a person having a life, having fun, be strategic in where you are, what you do, and what you post. My grandmother used to say, think about the front page news. If you ever land on the front page of the newspaper, which I know many of us don't read the newspapers anymore, what would you like that story to say about you? So I'll put it in that context.
Awesome. We have another question.
My name is Jose Perez from CSU Stanislaus. My question is, you guys talked about the interviewing process, but how do you go about post-interviewing? Do you send a thank you letter, or, I mean, as applicants, you're anxious to know the answer, but you don't want to overwhelm the employers, so what do you do?
I personally like flowers delivered to my office. No, that's a great question. You know, I think, again, back to the whole, we're such a modern world, everyone sends an email. It's nice to just get even a thank you note. You know, and someone, our moderator mentioned, if this is not meant to be for you, I know it could be painful, but just know that there's something better out there for you. And I know it's kind of hard to grasp, but from a post standpoint, I would say follow up, whether an email, a phone call, or a thank you note works, and just reiterating, you know, how excited you are. And also what I've done in the past is I reiterate the interview just a little bit. I'll give like a few bullet points and just say, I just want to remind you why it would be such a value to this role. And I would break it down one more time just in case they forgot or they couldn't read it in their notebook, you know. So that's what I would probably recommend.
The thank you note's super nice. No one goes, wow, this sucks, I got a thank you card. So it's nice. What I will say, I think the email can actually be much more effective because my decision is going to be made usually within 24 hours of meeting that candidate. So just know that we don't sit around and we can go, you know, I'll decide by the end of the week. We have an impression, we review the notes, we discuss it with our colleagues, or we discuss it with the recruiting team, and then a decision is going to be made very shortly. So I think the email thank you is not as nice as the card, but more effective.
And then I think you mentioned it, and I'll just say it one more time. Within 24 to 48 hours, if you feel that this is the job. Now, I FedExed a thank you card. Yes.
Double points.
Because I really
Double points.
I really wanted the job, and so there was quite a few who've been working for a while, and there were quite a few jobs where I got creative. and I think creativity, and I've been in nonprofit majority of my career. And so I did a lot of creative things. I worked with the Arthritis Foundation, and I got real creative with that, and I FedExed a thank you card, and because I knew that they were going to be making a decision. So even though I didn't get hired at that job, the person that they hired called me in, and they heard about me, and so they wanted me to work for them. So creativity is really great when you're going into thank you cards. Emails are always effective. And I think maybe it's a girl guy thing. I don't know, but I love my thank you cards. I've had people even walk thank you cards in. So it depends on what your style is. What do you like? What do you feel fits for you? And then do it.
All right, we have another question.
My name is Isaac Hodges from John Jay College in New York. My question for you is, you say that we should highlight our attributes and our achievements on our resumes and stuff, to stand out. But how would you have any suggestions on doing that without sounding too braggart or boastful about things? How do you pick and choose? How would you suggest us picking and choosing our achievements if we have or our attributes if we have a lot?
I think it's essential to weave it.
Thank you.
It's very essential to weave that into the resume. You don't want a great team player. Well, what does that mean? That's subjective, right? But if you can demonstrate in a sentence how you were a great team player as you accomplished those achievements, then that's what you do.
Outcomes. I'm sorry. Outcomes. I mean, make sure it's relevant to the job. Like you said, team player. We'll figure that out if you get hired. But making sure that that's relevant to the job, and as you mentioned, what outcomes. So if you've worked with the VP of accounting or the CFO or whoever, mention that. I mean, yeah, you do need to brag because we want to know what you're capable of doing. So when you come in, you'll talk about it a little more. But I would say just making sure that it's relevant to the job. And that you show some outcomes on if you were able to make 20 calls, if you worked at a nonprofit or a campaign or something, you've done calls, give me numbers, quantify some of the outcomes that you've done as well.
Yeah, I would definitely piggyback on that. 100% quantify. I was the number 2 person in my organization for 3 years. I was number 1 in sales, top 1%. Whatever those numbers are, use those. Having those metrics and numbers, that says a lot about you as an individual. If you're on a team and, there are 5 people on my team, I have been consistently leading the team, even though you don't have the title, you can still be a leader, right? So your team relies on you to deliver X, Y, Z. So definitely brag on yourself because it's relevant. You want to take your career to the next level, and how do you do it? What are you currently doing? What have you done? So use those numbers. Often we shy away from I got the award, I was the associate of the month. That's great. There's 500 people who work in your company and you were the associate of the month. Yay. That's leadership. People have seen you and nominated you for those things. If you're at Starbucks, you guys have those great little cards. I love to see. If I want to hire someone, I will tell you I've stole a lot of your folks over the years. Great customer service.
They come right back.
Yeah, one did. But that's okay. But again, they give great customer service. Fantastic. They know my name when I come to Starbucks.
That is so awesome.
So very important.
Sorry, we have 10 more minutes, and I want to squeeze in as many questions, so you guys just make your questions straight to the point.
Okay. You answered some of it earlier, but I want to get some of these guys' opinions. How do you overcome obstacles like past convictions on your record?
Convictions? Well, one of the good things is they just recently passed the, what's it called? It's the box. Thank you, ban the box. So that's one of the great things about that, and I know that's one of the things that people have had to deal with is putting that information. But prior to that, I think what a lot of people have done is if there are any convictions or misdemeanors, if that's what we're talking about, misdemeanors and felonies, think about that question, both on the application and when you interview. I think it's just like you said, too much information, TMI. you get into the, double strong arm, and you got to think about those questions. And when you check that out, also talk about how long ago it was and what you've done after that. I've been out, I've gotten a clean record, and even while you were in, what are some of the things that you did? You might have, done some positive things while you were in. So, think about how you answer the question on the application is important, and how far along was it? Because some companies don't go far, state and federal, of course, is a little different. But some of the nonprofit organizations, I remember I had a gentleman who did have a ding on his record. And unfortunately, I worked for the airport. So at that time, he wasn't and I'm sure now, he wasn't able to work there. But a lot of nonprofit organizations, they don't look at that as much. They look at what you're doing now. You've gone in school and you've completed a certificate, or you've worked or volunteered. Like you said, brag about all that. And if it's back in 2000, or however long it is, and get letter recommendations. There's a lot of things that the state of California, and I know everyone's from different states, there's a lot of things from state of California that we offer bonding and other opportunities, so you can look at other avenues in which you can show this employer, hey, this may happen back then, but here I am now. Coca-Cola had a lawsuit about that not too long ago, and I don't remember, it was like $33 million or some large amount that they didn't hire someone based on the fact that, they had a conviction, and all they were doing was bottling caps. I mean, come on, really? So, thinking of how you answer that question on that application and how you talk about it in that interview. Don't dwell on it. Even if you've been fired or something, don't dwell on, well, what had happened was, don't get into that. Don't. Whatever you do, I've seen it. It goes on, and don't get into, what happened. Say, management causes things to happen, and switching management, and next thing you know, you on unemployment line. So don't talk about the employer. Oh my gosh, that's a story itself. While that person treated you bad, and your boss, you took a 2-hour break, and they told you to come back, and you didn't feel that was right. Don't get into that. Talk about what happened. This is what I've done. I've learned from it. I had a young man who got fired from, not understanding the military time versus regular time, and he got fired, and he was really down on it, and I kind of walked him through it. It's like, let him know, now I have the military information in front of me, so now I know the military time. So show what you've done as an accomplishment based on what has happened in the past.
One of the things I do want to add, and please connect with me afterwards, I'm currently working with 3 young men who were convicted felons who have started their own businesses, 3 separate businesses, one in barbering, one in, I think, physical fitness, and the other one has his own trucking company. So again, you can turn around anything. So see me afterwards. I like to give you their information. So maybe a traditional job that we see here isn't for you. There might be a way where you create your own opportunity, and then you can hire others who are going along that same path of reinventing themselves.
That's awesome. I have a question here.
Hi, Susie Shepler, Norco College, and I wanted to find out about how you would go about paring down your resume if you're someone like me who's returning to college after a long time. I'm majoring in accounting, but I have 20 years of accounting experience, and that doesn't necessarily fit on one page.
This is what I tell everybody. You got too much information out there. Focus, you know where I'm going.
Yes.
Functional. Go with a functional resume. Highlight 3 things you do very well. My personal resume, I've done a lot of stuff in 30 years. It's got 3 key areas. So focus on 3 things that you are the expert at, whether it's like business, accounting, and technology. I'm just throwing 3 things out there. And then 4 or 5 things under there where you've excelled at. Then you list your company. So who has a functional and a chronological resume? Okay. You should never have only a chronological resume. You should always have both. That's how you highlight your experiences.
Yes, absolutely. And just to add to that, whoever's looking at your resume, and I'm sure my colleagues can attest, the minute we see 2 pages of a resume, we're not even going to look at it. So keep it at 1 page.
All right, so we have time for 3 more questions, and I have them all lined up over here. Well, some more questions. Well, 3.
Okay, my name is Brandon Keener. I study at Barry University. So my question would be, I'm sure we all want to progress in the industry that we go into, and we're all looking for a promotion in our industry. How do you feel about employees moving laterally in the business as opposed to looking for the next promotion, and how moving laterally in the business will actually get them the promotion that they're looking for?
That is an excellent question. Organizations have this much opportunity for promotions. So to the extent that you kind of have a breadth of experience within an organization or even outside of an organization, helps you to move to that next tier. Because you can be an expert in the field that you're in right here, but to move up you need to know and understand the breadth of business. You don't have to be the expert, but to understand and be able to manage those processes is extremely helpful. So yes, those are things that you should do.
And one thing, if I may add, many companies, I'm talking primarily about Nestle, we're a matrix organization, which means that we will be moving you a lot laterally. And we're noticing a lot with our new millennials that they just want to move up the ladder. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in 5 years. It's going to take some time. But the most important thing is having such a great breadth of experience under your belt. I will give you an example. Our global headquarters is in Vevey, Switzerland, which means that when we hire, our folks are like, I want to go to Vevey. When can I go to Vevey? I've been in my role for 2 years. Can I go to? No, you cannot go to Vevey. And the reason why, it's because we want you to work across the country. We want you to work with different markets. We want you to have different type of, we want to know that you've brought in some great insights into the market. Because when you go to Switzerland with the rest of the other nations that are there, like Nestle Mexico, Nestle Brazil, Nestle Japan, they're going to come to you and say, oh, so you come from Nestle USA? That's great. So what do you have under your belt? Oh, I only worked in the West Coast, and this is, no, right? You're representing Nestle USA, so that means that you have to have such a great depth of experience. And the other thing I like to really add is be open to the experience of relocation. We relocate employees all the time, and we are willing to pay and move you wherever, but everyone just, the majority of our folks are like, no, I don't think I can leave my family. I get it. Family is important, believe me, but it's important to be able to say, yes, you know what, take me to Chicago for 2 years. I'll be there. Take me to New Jersey, take me to Arkansas, because the more that you have under your belt, the more you will be the next CEO for a big corporation or wherever your life, you have your goal set.
And I have to say, I'm probably the champion on reload. This is my 9th reload. So I've worked in Chicago, St. Louis, Tulsa, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Delaware, New York, Philadelphia. Actually, no, it's 10. And now L.A., and then now I'm back in Dallas. So laterals are great, right? Living in different environments, being exposed, and I've worked in 5 different countries. Every time they said an opportunity for me to do something different, didn't always come with a pay increase, but it came with a knowledge increase. So you got to look at that. The reason why you're going from A to B, because A goes with B and B goes with C. So sometimes you got to go to B to get to C, or you go to B because you remember where A was. And maybe A really wasn't where you should have been. You're really trying to get to D. So I'm breaking this down for you, okay? So don't be discouraged or disparaged if your employer says, there's a new role, but there's no money. You cannot equate every role with money. Every role should follow knowledge. Everything I've done in my career, I have learned more. The role that I had here in Los Angeles for the last 18 months, managing San Gabriel Valley, was a whole lot different than when I managed all of Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm a Texan, I was home with my folks. I'm here in California, great weather, love it, it's beautiful. It's a different environment. I have different cultures. I have different people. I have a different way of doing business. So don't be afraid. I challenge you. If your employer or prospective employer says, go to Utah for 18 months, do it.
Take it.
That is awesome.
Yes.
We have 1 minute left, and these 2 gentlemen want to squeeze their questions in, so I don't want them to be left out. So go ahead.
Hi, my name's Aaron Burgess. I'm a student at the University of Houston downtown. Yeah. All right. So it's sort of follow-up, but there's 2 parts to it. So do you think that it's realistic for for some, like say I wanted to be the CEO of Starbucks or something. Do you think it's actually realistic to work your way up to the top from the bottom? And do you think that it's worth, as a student, maybe taking time off from school to do workplace activities, internships, and things like that?
I'll just say your career is often going to require navigating. There is no clear-cut path. And we have people that are at the highest levels of vice presidents, so the CEO is still the founder, but we have some vice presidents that started off as baristas in our stores. Right. And, they're running, I look at someone like my boss who's running $1 billion business. That's the size, that's bigger than most businesses. And that's and so he did it. So it really depends on what you want. The break between school and, and going and getting some experience, I'm a believer in that. So I went to college right out of high school, and it was great, and it was a lot of fun. I got a lot more out of it when I went back after having worked. So I really got value out of that. So I think talk to people. Everyone's career is going to be slightly different, but I encourage you to explore it.
That's awesome. I just want to squeeze in his questions because you're telling me I have 30 seconds left, so go ahead.
My name is Mardi Gill. I'm a student at Cal State Long Beach. My question is for the gentleman who's representing Starbucks today. Today there's been a lot of talk about a branding yourself. And I got this question. I go to a lot of Starbucks, and a lot of the times it seems that every barista announces the drink the exact same way. Is the corporation branding the people? And if that's the case, is that good for a person, period?
I'm sorry, is the repeat the last part of the question?
A lot of the times I go to a lot of Starbucks, and every time the drink is announced, it's announced very phonetically the exact same way. And my question is the corporation branding the people? And if that's the case, is that good?
Okay, good, great question. To end on that one, this is great. No, I don't think so. I mean, I think when I think about our brand, and we are good. We want to do right by people. Any partner that works for us, we call our employees partners. Any partner that works 20 hours a week, we will pay for their 4-year college degree 100%. With instant, you could be a barista and we will pay for you to go to ASU and do it. So our brand is about being good. The way we do that is we believe that people come into Starbucks because they are trying to get something they can't get anymore. You come into Starbucks and we are not going to batch you. Today the world is getting bigger and the pressure to make more money has never been greater. So how do you do that? You batch people. You get them to start ordering a number 4 because it's easier for you as a corporation. So we believe a personal interaction and allowing you to customize your beverage is the way to do it, but we would never want to, we do standardize the way a drink is called. We would want our people to be able to have an interaction that is unique to each one of those customers. And I don't think we get it every time, but that's what we strive for.
Awesome. These guys did an amazing job. Can you give them a big round of applause? Thank you guys for your questions. Thank you guys for paying attention, and it was amazing.